Since you guys enjoyed my top Madhouse openings list so much, I figured I'd follow it up by talking about another studio that goes the extra mile when it comes to their openings: Kyoto Animation. KyoAni has only been making its own shows for a decade and a half now, but they're well known and well loved in the anime community for their immaculately polished and detailed animation. Most of their TV shows come pretty close to film quality most of the time, and when they make movies, oh boy, it's something else. As usual, this list will only be covering TV series, so just to warn you in advance, none of those movies are going to make the cut. Although their most recent film to hit the US, KyoAni director Naoko Yamada's adaptation of the gut-wrenching coming-of-age manga A Silent Voice has an incredible title sequence that's sure to place high if I ever cover movie intros in the future. I cannot recommend strongly enough that you see both the Silent Voice OP and the movie itself at your earliest convenience, which may be very soon. Thanks to 11 Arts, the film is having a limited theatrical run starting on October 20th. There's a website in the doobly-doo where you can find a showtime near you, and if you stick around to the end of the video, I'll be giving away tickets to the movie and a special mini-manga signed by its lead actors. Let's get back to the OPs that are eligible though. Not counting their early work as a second unit studio, KyoAni is relatively young and not as prolific as some other studios are, so they only have 18 series to draw on for this list. As such, I'm going to be limiting this to a shorter top 5, and I won't be breaking the OPs down into categories because there simply aren't enough to fill more than 2 of them. Pretty much all of KyoAni's openings are great though, so we will be listing off a few honorable mentions before we hit that top slot. In 5th place, we have one of the openings that you guys have most frequently requested that I cover: the intro to KyoAni's hit mystery show Hyouka, based on author Honobu Yanezawa's light novel series Kotenbu. Hyouka gives us 2 solid openings to choose from, and while the first is conventionally excellent, the second one is really something special. Hyouka's second opening is framed as a dream that Oreki Hotoro is having after dozing off in the club room. He finds himself outside the real world, stuck in reflections and drawings, able only to observe life as it goes on in his absence. This framing device allows for some unique shots of the important characters and places from the show, foreshadowing a great deal of what's to come, and KyoAni goes all out in selling the effects with their trademark spectacular animation, working especially hard to make the whiteboard marker and chalkboard segments look authentic. But this concept is more than just an excuse for mixed media sakuga and creative framing. It also serves to hammer home how Oreki feels about his place in the world. He is the definition of detached, barely putting any effort into anything that won't directly impact his comfort and survival. He is very much an outsider looking in on the rest of the world. His friends pull him out of that though, both figuratively and in this case literally, particularly Chitanda, whose adorable and insatiable curiosity all but forces Oreki to come out of his shell and expend energy whenever a mystery is afoot. This is of course conveyed by the shot of her reaching into the world of the reflections and pulling him out. Following that, in the actual real world, we see Ibara and Fukube cheekily drawing on his sleeping face before he wakes up and gives chase, giving an opening that might otherwise be overly serious a shot of much needed levity. In that respect, not only is this OP wonderfully creative, it also perfectly represents the sometimes comic tone of the show. Hyouka's opening is a fantastic example of what KyoAni does best: character animation. Even the background characters convey a great deal about who they are through their body language and expressions. Anyone in the foreground leaves an immediate and distinct impression, and of course, we get to know Oreki pretty intimately as he roams around the reflected city. The opening even manages to one-up the first OP's motif of color and ripples toward the end, using them more effectively in one shot than the first one did in its entire runtime. I've never seen another OP quite like this one, and it feels like something that only KyoAni could properly pull off. From a touch of magical realism to a full blast of actual magic, our 4th place winner is everyone's favorite anime about a genius rapper. No, not Neo Yokio. I'm talking about none other than the Ballad of Kanye West, theme park manager, aka Amagi Brilliant Park. If you haven't seen it yet, Amagi Brilliant Park is a fantastic comedy from Shoji Gato, the same brilliant mind that created Full Metal Panic and Full Metal Panic Fumofu. It takes real creative conviction to name the top white waifus in your show after Queen Latifah and 50 Cent, but Gato did it, and I'll be darned if that isn't one of the less crazy things about this show. I've always had a deep fascination with amusement parks, so Amagi Brilliant Park had me hooked from the get-go, but even if I had no interest in the premise and subject matter, I think that this opening would have sold me on it in an instant. It follows the day-to-day lives of the show's principal cast as they get ready for work at the park, and then give it their all to keep the park's guests happy. And it is, above all else, just a heck of a lot of fun. It has some great sight gags, some really gorgeous scenery and animation, and, other things that I like too. It also features some of the best character animation work that KyoAni has ever produced. Not only is the huge main cast incredibly expressive and lively, but several random kids just walking around the park with their parents are given better, more detailed animation than many studios give to the protagonists of their shows. As a result, every shot in this opening feels layered and alive. There's barely a second where something isn't moving on screen, be it a tree blowing in the wind, a group of kids watching a performance with awe, or an entire crowd of commuters swaying on a moving train. You can just feel the energy and excitement of the park pour out of the screen as you watch this intro. That's especially true as it reaches its climax, and the whole park staff puts on an incredible show for their visitors and the audience. When the cast starts clapping along with the music and we get an up-close look at the park mascots performing, I can't help smiling ear to ear. But that's not quite the most impressive part of this opening. The money shot, so to speak, is actually the split-screen montage towards the start of the OP that shows all of the nonsense going on in the park simultaneously. It's impossible to keep track of everything at once, or even track one chain of events effectively amid all the chaos, which very much puts you in Kanye Seiya's shoes as he tries to handle paperwork and maintain order in the park. But putting aside all of the stories that are being told here, just take a moment to actually appreciate what's going on in this shot. Every single one of these windows shows its own animated vignette, polished to the same level of quality as every other shot in this OP, and in some cases sped up after the animation was done. Just look at how smooth some of these shots are. Plus, while the shots do tell their own stories, they all play off of each other in big and small ways, especially at the end of the sequence when Isuzu's shotgun blast seems to carry through all of the other panels. That is, to put it bluntly, insane. This 8 seconds of animation probably took nearly as much work for the storyboarding and animation team as all of the shots that precede it combined. And while it's not necessary, all of that motion really adds to the sense of chaos in a way that more static images just wouldn't get across. It's not as flashy as some of the Sakuga moments that are coming up, but it's deeply impressive nonetheless. Which applies to this whole opening, really. It's more concerned with having fun than doing anything particularly mind-blowing, but like the characters in the show themselves, it puts everything it has into keeping you entertained. Our third place finisher focuses on entertainers of a different kind, the lovable all-girl rock band of K-On! As I said when talking about Beck on my last list, if you make a show about music, you really have to put your money where your mouth is when it comes to the OP, and boy oh boy does K-On! Ever step up to the plate in that regard. Each of the K-On! OPs is sung by Hokugo Tea Time, the girls' band within the show, as are the EDs, and they absolutely kill it with each and every one. And I'm not just talking about the music itself when I say that, but also the animated performances that go along with it. Each credit sequence for the show acts as a music video of sorts for the band, showing them actually playing the songs between shots of them going about their lives. The first two openings are well put together and beautifully animated, but I don't think they take as full advantage of the amateur band music video concept as they could. They're a little overproduced with fancy motion graphics, overlay effects, and smooth camera work that are well beyond the capabilities of a high school band. They feel like anime openings. Good anime openings, mind you, but somewhat generic. Compare them to the third opening and the ultimate winner of this slot, Utayo Miracle, where everything aside from a few brief title cards and one particle effect is presented as being filmed and cut together by the girls or one of their friends themselves using only a handy cam and sometimes a tripod. The shaky handheld shots of their performances, complete with autofocus errors and the awkward slight jumps between still shots, shots as the camera was either repositioned between takes or the focus was changed, give the whole thing an authentically amateurish vibe, which isn't easy to pull off in a high-budget animation where the production team has full control over literally every aspect of the visuals in each shot. You can tell that the animators carefully studied how real cameras work and put a lot of thought into how the characters would work with them and place them while putting this video together. And of course, they brought their A-game with the character animation too. The slight flubs as they prepare their little dances and perform for the camera both make the girls seem cuter and add to the amateur feeling of the production. I'm always turned off when OPs use standard character introduction shots. No matter how nice they look, they always come across as very lazy and unimaginative compared to other ways that you could introduce a show's cast. The first two K-On! OPs both suffer from this problem to some extent, but Utayo Miracle solves it beautifully by having the girls introduce themselves, posing for the camera with handwritten signs and then showing off their instruments, and every little detail of these shots tells you something about these characters, from the way they behave in front of the camera to the way that they write down their names, or in Mio's case, the way that the others do it for her. And in a broader narrative context, this OP does a great job of showing how far the girls have come in being accepted by their classmates and what they'll be leaving behind as they graduate. If you're a fan of the show, it carries a lot of emotional weight, and if you're new to it, it serves as a perfect introduction to what's going on. There are so many little details to unpack in this opening that I may need to come back to it with a full analysis in the future. But fortunately, I've already done that for our second place finisher, the first opening to Nichijou, although that pick may be a little bit contentious to some of you. Once again, we're looking at a series where all of the openings were fundamentally great. Nichijou's openings are hilarious, fun, and absolutely gorgeous, taking full advantage of the show's distinctive art style and Hyadain's equally distinctive musical compositions to create something truly unique. KyoAni frequently goes the extra mile to do something new and inventive with their openings, and that goes double for their EDs. Nichijou is an exemplar on both counts in both of its OPs and EDs. The rest of these shows gave us a clear winner, but in this case, deciding which is the best is more a matter of preference than anything else. Both of the show's openings could easily take this second place slot over everything that's come before them, and if you prefer the crazy dancing and lightning quick pace of Hyouka, I can't exactly blame you for that. For me though, the comparatively more steady pacing of the first opening better reflects the laid-back tone and relaxed delivery of the show than the second opening's rapid-fire barrage of jokes. And the first OP is where Nichijou's iconic stylistic flourishes, like the nested zooming character shots, the white backgrounds with the logo in them, and the girls lip-syncing with the male singer originated. I'm definitely not the kind of guy to argue that the original is always best, but in this case, I don't think that Hyouka really adds anything substantial to what the first OP does aside from having more Sakuga shots overall. And I don't think that it uses its borrowed ideas quite as effectively as the first opening either. While this is definitely subjective, I think that the first OP is just funnier. While it may not pack in nearly as many blink and you miss 'em references to jokes from the show, it gives most of the jokes that it does showcase room to breathe, with several shots creating a setup and punchline for each one of them instead of trying to cram all of that into less than a second in one frame. That also has the benefit of making it easier to follow, and the way that it begins and ends with the zooming shots creates a sense of consistency throughout it. As I said at the start of this, I've covered the first Nichijou opening already, and as I explained in that analysis video, the way that it reflects the structure and logic of the show in its own structure is pretty damn brilliant. But obviously, I wouldn't feel the need to spend as much time as I just have justifying its placement here over the second one if that weren't great too. I'm definitely going to be coming back to the series and giving that second OP a full analysis in the near future, and you can let me know whether I should do that or K-On! First in the comments below. Speaking of those comments, in an effort to stem the inevitable tide of complaints about my picks on this list, let's highlight some honorable mentions before moving on to our ultimate winner. Lucky Star just barely missed the cut here. Its infectiously fun intro has sparked countless parodies and even more awkward real-life dances at anime conventions. KyoAni essentially took the sensation that was Hare Hare Yukai and applied that magic to an OP instead of an ED, and the results were legendary. Lucky Star's intro is hugely influential and a ton of fun, and the fact that 5 other shows placed above it is a testament to just how good KyoAni is at making these things. Kobayashi's Maid Dragon was also a close contender with its strong sense of humor, surreal imagery, and not to mention its use of Fana, one of my favorite J-pop groups. Any opening that gets turned into a smoke weed remix this good within 3 months of coming out is worth talking about, but we'll have to talk about it another day. And even though it's disqualified from actually making the list, a silent voice at least deserves a mention here. Set to The Who's teen angst anthem My Generation, the movie's intro presents a nostalgic portrait of idle youth in summertime. It's gorgeously animated and syncs up flawlessly to the beats of the song, and I wanted to give it the full What's in an OP treatment because it's so damn good, but it's mostly just a summary of the manga's first chapter, so there's not much in it to actually analyze. Freeze OP manages to be both a shameless cavalcade of hot boys and a kick-ass adrenaline-pumping sports intro, and Tamako Market's OP is just adorable, though we should expect no less from the director who gave us K-On! And while they kind of pale in comparison to its iconic first ED, The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya had a pair of rock-solid openings as well. And last, but actually just last, I want to give a special shout out to Myriad Colors Phantom World for how it manages, against all odds, to take both great animation and a great theme song and somehow combine them both into a pile of unwatchable Technicolor vomit. It's a real accomplishment. But as bad as it manages to be, even that's not quite as impressive as our first place winner, the stellar first opening to Chuunibyou Demo Koi ga Shitai, Sparkling Daydream. And for once, I don't even have to bother justifying the placement of this OP over other options from the same series, because the opening to Chuunibyou Ren, like the sequel series itself, is little more than an awful cock tease. Yes, it features some nifty action animation, and yes, those 3D turnabouts do give us a very good idea of exactly how thick Nibutani and Kumin are, which is nice. But Chuunibyou is not a fantasy action series by any stretch of the imagination, well, except maybe for Rika's imagination, and it's about as sexless as a romantic comedy can possibly get, to the point that the main couple never even kisses. So, on top of being painfully generic, it all just feels like the OP equivalent of clickbait. A problem only compounded by the fact that the show's protagonist, Yuta, isn't in the second OP at all. Like, not even for a single frame. I get that cute girls are the show's main attraction, to the point that KyoAni had to invent 2 new waifus to reach the requisite 4, but the whole plot of the show revolves around Yuta's relationship with Rika, and while KyoAni productions tend to downplay their male leads in the OPs to some extent, this is just ridiculous. Thankfully, the first opening doesn't have any of those problems. I mean, it does focus on Rika more than anyone else, but Yuta at least gets almost as much screen time as the other girls do, and it's kind of justified in that the whole opening explicitly presents us with Rika's perspective. That's right, the split screen thing isn't just a neat gimmick that allows the OP to show its credits without blocking the animation, make that animation really smooth while also making it short, and allow for really easy cuts along with the music. It's also representative of how Rika sees the world, both literally in the sense that her eye patch covers up half of her field of view, and metaphorically in that her delusions create a divide between her and other people, as well as her own different personas. It's a pretty simple premise for an opening, all things considered, but it's well justified by the source material. I really like how they connect the dividing line to the ethereal horizon that Rika is obsessed with at the start of the OP. And KyoAni does everything that you could possibly imagine with the gimmick, from transitioning scenes across the line to using a mirrored frame for a cool illusion that's also thematically relevant. Those rapid right-left split-screen cuts make for a refreshing change of pace from KyoAni's bog-standard format for generic character introductions, and they leave a much more distinct impression of the characters' designs and personalities than a name, a torso shot, and a few seconds of random animation ever could. My favorite shots in this opening are the ones that focus on Rika and Yuta, though. Using a shot of Rika sitting on a bench to create the impression of her sitting on the back of his bike is a brilliant way of showing what what she fantasizes about, while also emphasizing the distance between them caused by her 8th grader syndrome. The payoff to this at the end of the OP, where they're shown holding hands in the same place but across the line before finally being framed together under the stars in the second to last shot, is really sweet and perfectly captures the emotional appeal of this first season. And I'd be lying if I said that the shots of Rika and the rest of the girls being cute and goofing off weren't appealing too, but then we all know that that's what KyoAni is really best at. And while this opening may or may not be the best example of that particular talent, it is the best example of many of their other strengths. It has a unique premise that lends itself really well to matching the visuals of the music. It is, of course, masterfully animated, and in both its content and the way it's shot and edited, it perfectly reflects the tone and themes of the show. Plus, it makes its credits an essential part of the visual composition, which is an important and seriously underappreciated factor in making any credits sequence really work, especially when you're not watching the no credits version on a Blu-ray. And that's the list. Kyoto Animation is a pretty small team, but they give everything they make their all, and the effort really shows. These OPs may be their best, but with each new production, they give themselves a run for their money. I'm excited to see what Violet Evergarden has in store for us next season, and whether it can topple one of the entries on this list. And if you haven't seen it yet, you should be excited to check out A Silent Voice. Doubly so because in 2 weeks we're going to be bringing back the weekly Weebcast with a slightly modified book club style format, and the first thing we'll be talking about is this movie. So once you see it, send an email with your thoughts about the film to weeklyweebcast@gmail.com to join the conversation, and stay tuned to my second channel, Basement Escape, to make sure you hear the conversation. And if you'd prefer to see A Silent Voice for free, 11 Arts has provided Mother's Basement with a few tickets to give away, as well as a special manga short signed by the Japanese voice actors for Shoko and Shoya, a special collectible which we'll be giving away to one lucky podcast listener. One more reason for you to tune in. To enter for a chance to win those tickets, all you need to do is this. First, check the link in the doobly-doo to make sure that the movie's playing near you. Second, leave a comment below with the hashtag ASV. And third, subscribe to Basement Escape to make sure you catch the Weebcast when it goes live, and to make sure you can win the contest, of course. We'll be contacting the winners the day after this video goes live, October 16th, so act fast if you want a chance. Or if you don't want to risk it, buy your own at the link in the doobly-doo. I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts about the film. But, of course, I'd also love to hear your thoughts about this list, so leave a comment below and let me know which KyoAni series is your favorite. And while you're down there, I'd greatly appreciate it if you'd subscribe to Mother's Basement and ring that notification bell to make sure you catch everything I make. And if you want to go the extra mile, I also have a Patreon at patreon.com/mothersbasement, which all of these magnificent examples of humanity have signed up to support. You could see your name next to theirs, or just get VIP privileges in my Discord server by joining my Patreon today. If you want to see more of my thoughts about anime openings, click here for my list of the 10 best Madhouse OPs, or click here for an in-depth analysis of the first Nichijou opening. And click down here to subscribe to Basement Escape if you want to enter that contest. I'm Geoff Thew, professional shitbag, reminding you to never skip the openings.